Are you excited about what's to come? Okay, that didn't sound very exciting. We've got a great day, and we welcome you again. It is great to see all of you here. It's wonderful. And as Ujima mentioned, we have been working really hard to develop new resources for our staff. And for the first time ever at this retreat, we've gathered an incredible panel to educate and to inspire you, and to talk about career pathing, and especially how mentoring can help in that pursuit. Now, if you could, in your portfolio on the left-hand side, pull out the handout for the mentoring. I want to draw your attention to near the bottom. It says Mentoring Toolkit. Now, you'll also see that you have some spaces to take notes during the panel discussion. But in that section, you'll have the web address to be able to access the resources that we have online. In fact, you'll find a PDF of the toolkit. When you print it off, it'll look something like this, and it will answer questions, it will provide resources for you. And one of the questions we get asked a lot is, how do I find a mentor? And how do I develop that relationship with a mentor? And this will help you with that. It will help you with your personal development, self-awareness, as well as being successful in a mentoring relationship. So we recommend that over the next couple of days that you go to our website and print this and utilize this as soon as possible. So, and it will provide some checklists, etc. Now, what I'd like to do is turn this over to our moderator, and who is our Vice President of Human Resources, Mindy Kornberg, and she will introduce the panel, and we will get started. So, Mindy, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Well, welcome. I don't know what Ujima and Linda have been drinking, but it's got high energy octane in it this morning. This feels a lot like a law school class, Nikki, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is wonderful to be here. I've been here before, but as Ujima said, this is by far the largest class, and it is a great attribute to all of the wonderful things that POD is doing and the success and how you feel about the day. I'd like to first introduce our panel for today, and they really are outstanding. And the reason I say this is because I hand-selected them. I've worked with each and every one of them, and I aspire to be like them when I grow up. So the first one is Ann Anderson, Associate Vice President and Controller, UW Finance and Facilities. Come on up, Ann. Christina Chang, Assistant Vice President of Finance and Administration, University Advancement. Nikki McCraw, Assistant Vice President, Medical Center, Human Resources. Linda Nelson, Director of Finance and Administration, College of Arts and Science. And Jean Woodard, Director of Building Services, UW Finance and Facilities. I'm very serious when I say this is a fine, extremely wonderful panel that you will learn a lot from today. I also want to acknowledge that for the first time, I believe, we are now streaming live to those out in wherever you are at UW. So welcome, folks. Woo! And so Vanessa, even though you're not going to be here until 10 o'clock, you know what you won.
No.
Oh, yes, you do. Vanessa, you won a Leadership Advantage subscription. No. I will hook you up.
You're going to pay for it.
And yes, I will end up.
She's going to pay for it.
And I will pay for it, Vanessa. But Vanessa, there are no secrets in today's world. So career development at the University of Washington can take many forms. not all of our careers lead to a new position. There's always a choice to grow in your current position, to be the best you can where you are, return to school for enrichment and specialized training and knowledge to take on challenging assignments in a new position, or develop a plan to move up to the proverbial career ladder. We are here today to encourage you to take advantage of all the many wonderful opportunities that we have here at the University of Washington. People, you, all of us, are our number one asset at the University of Washington. So let me begin today's panel by asking each one of you the first question. Anne, briefly describe your career path to and or through the UW and the pivotal points along the way.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mindy. I'm delighted to be here this morning. Hopefully I'm sure will all be very riveting for you. I've been at the university for a very long time, probably longer than some of you have been on the earth. It'll be 28 years in July. And before that, thank you. And before that, I was at the other university on the other side of the state for about 6 years and went to school there. Just from the big picture, not very exciting. 2 places, all higher ed. But as hopefully you'll see in my comments throughout the morning, it grew on me and it became my passion. A few pivotal events, I guess I would say, influenced the path that I did take once I decided to stay in higher ed. When I was at Washington State, I had the opportunity to come over to Seattle, the big city, and to a conference, and happened to sit next to somebody that was in a supervisory position in grant and contract accounting in the central administration. And got to talking to her, and just offhandedly, at the end of the conference, said to her, I really liked her, we kind of bonded. I said, well, if you ever have anything available, give me a ring. Well, about 9 months later, she gave me a ring. And within a couple of months, I was over here working in grant contract accounting in financial management. So I started there in a supervisory position and learned a lot in that process, worked up to being the director of that office, and worked there for about 10 years. Then, as Mindy said, sometimes the path can take a different direction. And when an opportunity came up for a lateral move, it wasn't a promotion, but a lateral that would take me out of research administration into more broad accounting and finance activities, I took it because I thought it would be a great opportunity to broaden. Some of it was familiar to me because of what I had done at Washington State, so it was a little bit like coming home in some ways, but it was a much bigger, broader, more complicated job because UW is much more complicated. And that was a very pivotal move that I think foreshadowed what was to come in a good way. I took on opportunities along the way as the university reorged in different ways to take on additional units. Must have demonstrated an ability to take on more, but some of them were a little eclectic that you wouldn't normally be combining with the kind of position that I had, but did it anyway. And again, it was an opportunity to broaden what I was doing. Then, when I was promoted in 2004 to the AVP controller job, the same kinds of things kept happening. When there were opportunities that were presented to take on additional departments through reorgs or project work that I'll talk a little bit more about later, I took it. Advantages to engage in initiatives and projects that gave me visibility in process improvement or university-wide activities, those kinds of things. I took it because that's, frankly, in this big of a complicated place, what gets you opportunities, I think, a little bit quicker is to take the initiative and find ways to make yourself visible. And whether that's being part of a internal program within your department, maybe you're starting a recognition program, raise your hand. I see that every day, especially in my vantage point in the large organization that I have. It's nearly 200 people. People that I notice are the ones that make the point to get themselves visible. And that's kind of the pattern that I've done throughout my career. The place has grown on me, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Thanks, Ann. So Ann and I have worked on many projects, and I can tell you she is the opportunity queen, okay?
In a good way.
There has never been a project that was too complex for Ann, and I've been astounded because she's been asked to do just about every project, and she goes, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. So I think you're right.
And the day job, too.
Yeah, sees the opportunities.
It's partnering, too. None of this happens alone. I don't do anything alone. People at this table, in many respects, have been involved in a lot of those activities,
Yeah.
as has Mindy. So it's garnering all your resources, all the smart people, bring them in a room and solve problems.
Yeah. Christina.
Good morning. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. So I've been at the university for 16 years. I started as a budget analyst in 2001. But to go back, I started my career after getting an English literature degree. Anybody get an English or humanities? Thank you. We know how to write, right? We know how to analyze. Critical analysis. I choose to see it not as doors closing, but lots of doors opening. So I started my career in social justice. Anybody heard of the PIRGs? New York Public Interest Research Group? Thank you. My husband got into school in Michigan, so I had to follow him, and that started my path into higher ed. I worked at the University of Michigan for a couple years. Then we moved to Washington, where I got my graduate degree. And while I was getting my graduate degree in Washington, D.C., I started working in the financial aid office of American University. Again, pretty social justice oriented. I was exposed to a lot of folks with need, and the ability to be able to give them aid was really empowering. Then, on a whim, I put my husband's resume up on Monster, and the first job he got was in the wrong Washington. It wasn't in Washington, D.C. He took us all the way out to Seattle. A blessing in disguise. I started work here in 2001 as a budget analyst, and in 2003, my bosses at the time, Linda Barrett and Bill Ferris, encouraged me to apply for the Director of Finance and Administration in the Advancement Office. So I applied, and here I am. Since 2003, I've been there. You need to prompt me. What else did you ask?
I think that's it. I think
Okay,
that you
all right.
kind of...
Yeah.
Okay. Nikki, do you want me to read the question again? Or?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm going to answer the question you ask, and I'm going to answer a little more because I want to.
And you can. You have the microphone.
I have the microphone, so I love this. And Mindy's even my boss. So I'm Nikki McCraw. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Human Resources for UW-Medicine. So my path to UW has been interesting. I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I grew up in the very rural South, well below poverty level. You know, we ate in the winter because we grew our food in the summer. No one I knew had been to college. No one in my family had been to college. And I decided to go to college. I worked and put myself through. I then decided to go to law school, not because I had a burning desire to be a lawyer, but I thought it would be a good path to get myself out of the South. My goal at that time was not to be a lawyer, but to find a way to leave the South and always have a skill that I could fall back on. And that seemed to be the easiest route for me to do that. I went to law school and promptly left the South and moved to Seattle sight unseen for absolutely no reason that I can articulate. But I was 25, and that's what you do when you're 25. And it was fantastic. I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've been here ever since. I got my first job as a lawyer. I didn't know anyone. I was just kind of hustling and looking for a job, and I got one. And since then, I practiced law for about 8 years. I came to UW after getting a job looking in the Sunday newspaper back when we printed jobs in the newspaper. I was at USERO, the University Complaint Investigation and Resolution Office, and was an investigator there and then the director for about 5 years. I went back into private practice, remembered I didn't like being a lawyer, came back, and then I've been in this job for about 10 years. So as I thought about my path and sort of how I got here and the things that were important to me and what influenced me along the way, there were sort of some themes that stood out to me, and I think more than remembering my story, I think the themes are what is really or what are really important, and that's what I want to point out to you. So the themes for me were know yourself and know what you love to do, know what you don't know, build relationships and jealously guard your professional reputation because it is going to follow you everywhere. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And then this is a really big one for me, and that is once you get to the next step, remember people behind you. I think you have an obligation to help people behind you. So my path, as I just described it to you, not at all linear. Very few people, I think, have a linear path. Like I'm an administrative assistant 1 and I'm going to become an administrative assistant 2, and you go on this linear path. Most people are like that, and that was true for me. For me, I based where I was going on what I liked and what I was good at. I'm good at big picture things, and I'm good at connecting with people, and that helped me in certain jobs along the way. I'm terrible at details, as my boss will point out to you. If I had some of the jobs that you have, I would not probably be here because I would have been probably out on a probationary period. With a couple of exceptions, most of my jobs have come through connections or relationships with people. So I told you I got my first job just with a firm, just kind of by hustling. But I left my first firm to go to my next firm because I had beat that firm in a trial. And I had built a relationship with them in that, even though we're an adversarial position, they knew my professional reputation, and they hired me after that trial. I left, I came to UCERO because I found the job in the Sunday paper, but I left that job because a friend had recruited me to come back out into private practice again. But I took UW work with me and kept UW as a client because of that professional relationship that I had built. And then I left that firm to come back to UW because of the professional relationships that I had built at UW. And pretty quickly, I came back as on the campus side of HR, but I think I was in that job for 4 or 5 months. And Jonice Spiso, who was at the time the chief health system officer at UW-Medicine, asked me to come over onto the UW-Medicine side because of the relationship I'd maintained with her, and I've been in that job now for 10 years. So the other piece that I think is important, and both these guys have touched on it as well, is when I wanted to grow skills and I wanted to get myself from this point to that point, I tried to find ways to take on new opportunities. And the first thing I had to figure out is what is it that I don't know? And that takes some knowing yourself and knowing where you want to go and what's the gap. And you have to be really honest with yourself about that. And in my current job, I know a lot about HR, but I wanted to know more about hospital operations, and I don't know that. And I knew that there were several things I needed to learn. I needed to learn about what is hospital finance? How does that work? And there were other operational pieces that I would sit in meetings and hear people use specific terms. So I knew they were really important, but I didn't know why. So I had to find people who I trusted enough that I could go and ask questions, even though I felt kind of dumb about it. I would find people that I could trust and go say, people are always talking about supply chain. I get that that's really important, but I need for you to explain to me, why is that important? Why are we always talking about that? And you need to find those people who you can go and ask those questions to. And that's one of the ways that you're going to be able to close those gaps. And I think that is critically important. And, find those people throughout the organization who will be that person for you. And people are really happy to do that. And that is a mentoring type of relationship, but you need to find those people. I found that's been very important to me. When I found gaps that I've needed to fill, I found people I could ask those questions to. I've asked them if I could sit in some of their meetings just so I could learn more about what they know about. I've told people what I was interested in so that they would know that I was interested in a particular topic and they would find ways to help educate me. And that goes back to what I was talking about building relationships and asking for help. And then once again, the point that I want to make sure you remember is that once you found your step up, don't forget that, from my standpoint, I think you have an obligation to turn around and help someone behind you to get their step up as well. So that's my very meandering path from, the poor kid in rural Mississippi to sitting at this table today.
So that was a great story, and now I understand why Nikki wants me to call her Dr. Nikki, because as she learns more about hospital operations, she thinks she is a doctor. Okay. I'm good with that. No, that really was very interesting. Okay, Linda, do you need me to repeat the question?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today. When I started sitting down to do these remarks, I realized that I'll be celebrating my 30th year of service here in June. Wow. And I certainly don't feel like it's been 30 years. I have a little bit of a different sort of story, because when I started here, if I could go back and talk to myself in 1987 when I was first here and said, you're going to be here in 30 years, I would have said, no. I'm not looking for a career. I just need a job. And don't get me wrong, I thought I had a plan at the end of undergraduate. I too was an English literature major, and I had a plan, and I went to graduate school. I got a master's in library science, and I loved getting the degree. But I realized at the end of that, as I was living in Texas, that I didn't want to work in libraries. So now I have a conundrum. So I came back to Seattle because that seemed a thing to do, and I was 24, and that's what you do is you go back. And the one thing I knew for certain at that point, besides not wanting to be working in a library, was I didn't want to move back in with my parents.
Very motivating.
So I came back to home base, which was the University of Washington. I'd gotten my undergraduate degree here.
Could you talk to my daughter about that?
Sure. I'd gotten my undergraduate degree here. I had worked as a student hourly, and I had done some work in the temp pool in the summer between graduate schools. So my first stop here at the university was in the temp pool. So I got sent out to various jobs, and at one point I got assigned to the Department of Atmospheric Sciences, where weather is more than just a social topic.
Good tagline.
Thank you.
They should use that.
I should go into marketing. As a technical typist, doing mathematical formulas on first-generation Macs, which was a big deal. And I was encouraged to apply for that open position. They were trying to fill a vacancy, and I was a successful applicant, so I started in my first job. And the first pivot point came about a year later when my supervisor saw something in me. And her name is Catherine Stout. She is still here at the University of Washington. And she said, how would you like to try your hands at doing some grants management? Of course, at that point, I didn't realize it was grants management. She goes, here's a spreadsheet. Here's some numbers. Do stuff. And I'm like, okay. And I thought, I like this. This is fun. This uses my library degree because I'm organizing information. This is something I would like to continue to do. And I was in atmospheric sciences for about 3 years and realized that I had an interesting choice to make, which Mindy alluded to earlier. I could stay working with the same people who I adored, doing work that I loved doing, or I could try to see if there was something else out there in the organization that I loved doing that was going to add to my skill set. And so at that point in time, I prioritized going outside my comfort zone, which was really scary. And my next stop was an opportunity in the dean's office at the School of Business before it was named the Foster School. And that was revelatory. First of all, it was a perspective of being in the dean's office as opposed to a department, so a whole different way of thinking about things. And a different school, it's like, ooh, even though we do similar things, we do them differently. This is kind of cool. This is a big organization. It's fun. And it's also where I sort of got a preview of what I might really enjoy doing, because of course there was a director of finance and administration for the school, and I thought, that job looks even more fun than my current job. I wonder how I get to that point. So I was in the business school for about 3 years and decided again it was time to expand my skill set, and took an opportunity to move to my third school, the School of Medicine, and the Department of Immunology, which is a basic research unit within School of Medicine. Had my first opportunity to supervise. So again, I was in that situation. The administrator who hired me, Mary Fran Joseph, who is still with the School of Medicine, took a chance on me as someone with no supervisory experience to put me in that role, and mentored and coached me about, how to grow into that new role, as well as providing me responsibilities in terms of facilities and moving to new H-Wing edition. Nothing like moving an entire 5 faculty and their research labs and very delicate instrumentation from one floor in health sciences to another. Very complex. So it was my first opportunity at project management, because it had a beginning, a chaotic middle, and an end. And I was in immunology for about 3 or 4 years, and again felt that urge to expand my skill set. And this is another pivotal point, but I actually didn't know about it at the time. I began to apply for sort of entry-level pro staff financial management positions, manager of program operations. And I had applied for a position in a department, and I was a finalist, but I wasn't the top candidate. I'd also applied for another position in the physics department. Unbeknownst to me, someone in comparative medicine knew someone in physics. And they thought well of me enough in comparative medicine, not the top candidate, but really good. They picked up the phone and called someone in physics and said, hey, if this person is in your pool, maybe you should take a look at them. Kind of goes to Nikki's point about your professional reputation is something you take with you everywhere you go, and you never know when it's going to pop up. So I did get an interview in physics. I ended up moving to physics in 1997 as a manager of program operations, and eventually became the department administrator in the early 2000s, which is when I was also began receiving opportunities to say yes to things like teaching department budgets and fiscal reporting for professional organization and development, which, yes, which was before there was MyFD, there were the BARs and BSRs. And I also had an opportunity to participate in the financial process improvement team and the user project, which brought us MyFD, which is, of course, our current favorite tool. And finally, I moved to the Dean's Office in the College of Arts and Sciences in my current position in 2007.
That's a lot of movement.
It is.
Thank you. That's great. And so if Nikki isn't detailed, Linda is. If for those who have worked with her, Linda is very detailed, and it's a good thing. So, Jeannie, it's your turn. Are you running away or what?
Yes, I'm trying.
Okay, you should have thought about that a little sooner. Okay, do you need me to?
I do not.
Okay, see?
First, I want to congratulate all of you for investing in yourselves today, coming here and spending a day to rejuvenate and learn new skills and to network, so congratulations. I've been here going on 32 years, and I think that makes me the oldest up here. And I'll go into a little bit of my background similar to Nikki. I grew up in public housing in San Francisco, a single mom. I was the oldest of four, and it was a pretty rough neighborhood, and I was good in sports, and played sports most of the school year and summer, but there were times when I didn't, and I hung out with the guys. My mother used to refer to them as hoodlums, and I would hang out with them. And I think the first pivotal moment in my path to here was when they told me to go home. Don't hang out with us, because they were about to get into some trouble. And a couple of them had been to my house and had dinner in my home. We were, welfare most of the time, but there was love in my house, and they recognized that. And that's one of the themes that I've tried to carry throughout my career, is to connect with people, to really show compassion and have love for people. And those guys, in their own way, steered me away from them, and they kind of protected me as I was growing up and didn't let me get in trouble. Coaches later became my mentors. They told me about being responsible, being a good teammate, that practice and working on something, you do get better. And that was a really good lesson for me. The more you practice at something, the better you get. Skills and certain gifts come into play and might prevent you from going all the way to extraordinary. But I think there's things that all of us can be extraordinary in. I didn't know what mine was. I was good in football, managed to get a scholarship to Portland State. Took me 5.5 years to graduate or something like that. Wasn't that great of a but I did. And after my senior season, I wanted to earn some money for Christmas. It was November, and someone told me that they were hiring some jobs or Central Supply at Emmanuel Hospital. And so I went and applied, and the guy, the HR rep, didn't even interview me. He knew I played football, and he said, "Oh, you hired me." We started talking about sports.
Don't do that. Okay. That's
So
not how we like to see things go, but okay.
So your reputation is important, although, and who you know, or who knows you. That's important. And so I would work in Central Supply delivering syringes and gauzes and tape and all kinds of stuff up to the medical floors. And I would take 4 carts at a time instead of 1 like most of the people did. And I would be finished and sit in the office and do my studying. And the housekeeper came in every night, and I got to know Lisa. And Lisa told me one day, there's a housekeeping supervisor position open, and you ought to apply for it. I said, "Are you crazy? Have you seen my apartment? I don't know anything about cleaning." She said, "You'll like the director. He's a great guy. I think he'd be someone good, and you'd like to work for him." So I went over, met him, applied. I had to go find a tie so I can interview, and he actually hired me. And I went through a lot of technical training and the environmental services skills. I was sent to Denver for some other training. And this was a contract company that was the management for environmental services. And I was a hospital employee. And over time, the director left, and he was a great guy. He was encouraging. He saw potential in me. He spoke positive words of affirmation into me all the time about my potential, which is what I needed. And I was learning the technical aspects of the job, infection control, chemical controls, workloading, the finance part of it. I was getting all that on the ground. And then the director left, and things started falling apart. And I was the youngest. I was 24 years old, the youngest supervisor there, and they ended up firing the management firm and selected me to be the interim. And I'm trying to reflect back and realize or try to figure out why did they select me. I was the youngest. And I think it goes to some of the things that were said earlier. I had volunteered to work on extra projects, work on committees. They saw that I was fairly assertive, which was going along with my compassion, I think was a good balance of leadership skills that I had yet to develop. That they made me interim. They flew people in from all over the United States for the permanent job. We're interviewing people. 6 months had passed, and I went up and said, hey, why don't you make me the director? Make this a permanent position. The place isn't falling apart. We're actually making some improvements. The nurses are happy. And he said, no, he was a year or two away from retirement. He said, Gene, you don't have the experience, and I don't have the time to train you and to invest in you. And I said, well, I'll probably look around because I think this is a career that I can work in. I think I can be good at this, so I'm going to look around. And I found a manager job at a little 17-bed hospital. Emmanuel was 330 beds, trauma center, burn center, 100 FTE. I had $1 million, it was $1 million budget back then, which was a pretty significant budget. I was gonna go to a 17-bed hospital with maybe 15 people. So I went back and told him, and he said, and he gave me the job. I was like, okay. And he was right, he didn't have time to train me or give me a lot of guidance. But I found mentors in the directors of environmental services at Providence Hospital, at Portland, at Venice Hospital, at Holiday Park Hospital. I networked with them. They were seasoned people. They steered me into some professional associations where I ended up getting certification. So I got my education from outside the normal, the channels or within the hospital. And I did that for 7 years. I kind of plateaued, and I was young. I had an afro. I was trying to, move up in the world, and
We know, Gene, you were cool.
yeah, I was trying to be cool. And the newspaper, the Portland newspaper, there was a position, custodial officer here at the University of Washington. So I submitted my resume, got an interview sometime in the spring, and then didn't hear back. And so July came, and I said, oh yeah, I applied for a job. Let me check on it. And I called back and talked to HR and the director at that time, and then a few weeks later, they offered me the job, and I've been here ever since. And the thing that's been really rewarding is that I've had autonomy and the ability to innovate and to implement new things. And I had leaders that I reported to that supported my affiliation and activities with professional associations. I've been president of the International Facilities Managers Association. I'm currently on the Green Clean School Council for the Healthy School Campaign, a nonprofit out of Chicago that's really trying to have a clean and helpful environment for K through 12 primarily, but a lot of universities as well. So there's been a lot of rewards working with great people. I've had 3 title changes, so stretched the position. I worked on user project as well, and a lot of committees here at the university. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you all. And I think there are some common themes, and I was just kind of thinking about them. I think one of the common themes is take advantage of opportunities. You may not know it's an opportunity immediately, but go after them, seize them, take advantage of them. Another one is network. You may not get the job that you want the first time, but they may refer you to somebody else because they're impressed with you, okay? So it's really, really important to network, and with that goes, your credibility is what you have, and so hold it closely. And the other thing is that mobility is not linear. I mean, it takes all directions, and there wasn't anybody up here who kind of went, this is how I started. It was, and that's the way life is. And so that's kind of an interesting, it's really nice to kind of be reaffirmed about that, because my career did the same thing, and it wasn't linear. It was all over the place. So thank you. And we also it was nice to hear about the importance of a mentor. So now I'd like to throw out a question to the panel, and whoever feels like answering it. But remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Remember when they were saying, to the kids in the class, anyone? Like, someone needs to answer this question, or I will call on you. So don't leave me hanging up here. So the next question is, what were one or two, and some of you have touched on this, what were one or two influencing factors that motivated the direction your path took? Experiences, projects, accomplishments, and I think you have somewhat touched on it, but if someone can, Anne?
A couple of things. I'll talk about a project, and then I'll talk about more what I learned about myself. So carrying one theme, I learned I didn't like to clean. My first job was when I was 14, also a poor kid, and somebody felt sorry for me and said, why don't you come and clean my office? And I'm like, okay. Actually, I didn't say okay. My mother said, yes, she'll love to do that. And I think that was the only job I ever got fired from, but I intended to get fired. Does anybody remember when you had to wax floors? Mm-hmm. I waxed it before I swept it. Oh. Because I wanted to get fired. And I did. And I was so happy.
So you were successful.
I was successful in my mission, yes. I guess what I learned is that, and it goes to what many have been saying, your reputation and what others think about you. It's easy to say, well, I don't care what other people think about me. But in the workplace, you do have to care what other people think about you, because that is what's going to be hooked in people's minds about what they think about you and what you're capable of, and do they want you as a coworker. And so one of the things that I figured out early on is that I liked to solve problems, that being an optimistic person intrinsically was going to serve me well, that when you can use humor in the face of conflict can be very effective, and that when you're a leader, leading with humility is one of the most important things that you can do. And not all of those things, I didn't wake up in the morning when I was 25 and said, aha, I think I'm a good communicator, and I think I'm funny. And it just kind of evolved over time, but about midpoint in my career, I think that all kind of gelled. And the reason that I think that was important for me is that I have never gotten a job anywhere that I just applied for cold, ever. I was always turned down. So I'll turn in the application, wait for the call, go have the interview, never got the job. Came close a couple times. You were my second choice. Sometimes I got the job because the first person turned it down, and I was the second choice, and that's how I learned that I was the second choice. But other than that, it's always been because of who I knew or projects that I had been involved in. And so I think that, I don't know if that's a common experience, but it certainly has been mine. And I think it's in large part because I took those opportunities to get visible, and did step outside of myself a little bit, which is not an easy thing to do when you have, quote, a day job. You've got to figure out how to balance your time. You've got to figure out how to prioritize. Mentors can help with that tremendously. And I think that my own kind of realization about myself, combined with that networking that is so important in the workplace in lots of different ways. Sometimes networking can be more about learning from people that don't even know that they're mentoring you. I have had a number of those kind of people. And very early in my career, I had a manager who was the director of the financial aid office at the time at WSU, and I was a program assistant. Started there as a student, like lots of people in higher ed. I was a student employee. And I just idolized this person. I thought that she was the most amazing person I'd ever seen in my whole entire life. She was articulate and so smart, and how she presented herself in front of the office with such grace and profession. I mean, it was just, and I just sucked it in. I sucked in every word she said. I started to use she was from the South, and she'd use this little lilt that I just thought was the coolest thing I'd ever heard in my life growing up in Spokane. And so I thought, well, that works for everybody, so I'm going to try it. I mean, I just sucked it in and kind of followed that all along in my career. So important things to do. Find people that you admire, and you don't even have to know them, but you can copy them. Bill Clinton, an amazing speech giver. Doesn't matter if you like the politics or not. If you're somebody that needs to be out in front of people, then seek out people that are good at that and copy some of the ways that it doesn't matter what they say, it's how they say it. So look for things that match with your aspirations and look at how they're doing things. Not so much what, but how. So that, I kind of figured that out. Watch people. Be trusting. So if you're a manager, involve other people in decision making. If you hold all of the cards in your own head, that's being controlling, that's controlling information, that is not collaborative, and people will see that. Be trustworthy, we've talked about that. Use humor when you can. It doesn't always work, but it can diffuse a conflict situation. And if you're somebody, and don't be negative. People pick up on the fact that there's, Debbie Downers in every crowd. And guess what? Over time, nobody wants to be. You're not going to get invited to the garden party, right? So try to be as optimistic and positive as you can, even in the face of adversity. It really will serve you well. And just figuring those things out about yourself and trying to make them even better is something that I think the earlier you can tie and knit all that together, it will serve you very well.
That's great. Those were some great lessons and some great tips. I can move on to the third question if you like, okay? Then the next question is, was there a mentor or influential person or persons who helped shape the direction your path took and how so? So for Ann, we know it was the woman from the South who had the lilt, and when Ann from Spokane started talking with a Southern accent, everybody kind of wondered what was going on, but she felt good about it. And then when she started like this, like Bill Clinton, people wondered, but it worked for her. Okay, so and we know, anybody else have mentors that, I think we all have some mentors, so.
I can address that. I'll go back to my first job at Emmanuel Hospital as a director, and I didn't have to figure out what I didn't know because I knew nothing. So I was pretty humbled, and I relied on the team that was there and really entrusted them. I had to because they had way more experience, way more knowledge about the institution, about how things ran. And we really bonded as a team. And so the theme of bringing others along with you, I quickly gave promotions to those that were high performing and were well deserving of it, that had earned those promotions. I got them involved in the association. And then they had ownership in their position. So as a leader, when they had that ownership in what they were doing and taking full responsibility, that floated us all up. That floated the entire department. Mm-hmm. And so along with, just helping others to grow, that in turn helps you to grow. And then the same for the mentors that I had that were outside of the hospital. They took such an interest in me and wanted me to be successful. So you want to surround yourself with people that do have your interest at heart and are doing it just because that's the way they are. And there's no other motive but to help.
Jean, that is a wonderful, wonderful point, and that is what makes a great mentor. Mentors are not doing it for the credit. Mentors are mentoring because that's who they are. That's what they have in their heart, and they want to see someone else really thrive, and that's what makes for a good mentor. And you will know a good mentor when you see him. It will become apparent. Others on the panel, Nikki.
I guess I want to address just sort of one thing before I go through my list of people here. But so when I talk about mentors, I know some people think of mentors as like a formal mentor relationship where you go to a person and say, "Will you be my mentor?" I've never done that. I think of mentors differently, and I have different people have mentored me in different ways. So Jean reminded me of, I think probably my first mentors were a couple of high school teachers I had who said, you really need to think about going to college. Nobody went to college where I grew up. I had a class of 123 people, and 3 of us went to college, and that was the most. That was the biggest percentage of people who had gone to college in my high school in quite some time. And so that's just not the environment where we grew up. And so I can think back to those 2 teachers who I still to this day am eternally grateful to for encouraging me to do that. So they were certainly mentors of mine. If I think professionally of mentors, I think of Joni Spiso. And the reason I saw her as a mentor is because she believed that I could do things that I didn't think I was quite ready to do. And she gave me those opportunities. So I felt like she mentored me in that regard. She pushed me a little bit into some uncomfortable positions, and that taught me that I was ready to do things, and it gave me the opportunity to do things. I think of Mindy as a mentor of mine because she gives me room to make mistakes, and I do. But when I do, we sit down and talk about it. I'll say, okay, here's what I was thinking. Here's why I did it this way. And, then we talk about, is there a way I could have done it differently? And that helps me learn things. So that's a different type of mentoring relationship. When I first came to the university, some of you may remember Mary Ann Bill. Mary Ann Bill was in HR forever. And had started out, I think, as a student and retired after 30-something years. And, Mary Ann Bill was a mentor of mine because she taught me the ropes of HR and UW and the politics. I don't know if you guys know there's some politics around, but like who's who, and if you're going to write an email, put the names in this order because of the hierarchy and the stuff that nobody tells you. So she was a mentor of mine in that regard. Denise Denton, who was the Dean of Engineering, was a mentor of mine. We were friends socially, but also she was a mentor of mine because she gave me opportunities to work on projects that I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to work on. And she was also one of those people who kind of taught me the ropes at UW. So I think of mentors and different types of mentoring relationships. And one thing I want to encourage you to do is to take advantage of opportunities that people provide to you. So we always hire summer students to work for us in the summer, and every year I take them out to lunch at the beginning of the year. And one of the reasons we hire so many summer students is because I want them to see that there are a world of opportunities out there. Yes, we're hiring you to do the crappy filing that none of us want to do all year long, but we also want you to see that HR has a whole bunch of different types of jobs, and so we want you to see that you can do all these different kinds of things. And this is a place of higher ed. So if you're really interested, if you think you're interested in physical therapy as a career, let me know that. Come and talk to me, because maybe I can find a person for you to go and talk to while you're here for a week. And so I take them out and talk to them about this every year, and it's always shocking to me how few of them come and talk to me later on and say, I'm glad you said that, and I'm really interested in physical therapy. Can you find me a person to talk to? And I also tell my staff that, if you're really interested in something, if you're interested in finding out more about a particular job or particular skills, I want you to come and talk to me. And it's stunning to me how few people actually do that. So take advantage of those relationships when you have them. I would say 2% of people on my staff actually come and ever have those conversations with me when I am completely open to them and try to encourage them. So make sure that when those paths are open to you, that you actually use them.
You know, Nikki, that raises a good point, and that is we're getting ready. You know, part of the annual process is we have performance evaluations, and so some of you will be doing performance evaluations. All of you should be receiving performance evaluations, and in the performance evaluation, there is an opportunity to discuss with your supervisor career development, and this is a wonderful time to think about where you want to be. This is what I have said, and this is what others will say, and that is, this is your opportunity. This is not your supervisor's responsibility to create an opportunity for you. You need to take control of your career and think long and hard, not just 10 minutes before. Where is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to do? What do you need to get there? Okay? How can this person help if they can? Right? So it's kind of a nice segue because we're coming up on that time for career development and professional development. Others who have mentors that have influenced them.
There's nothing's been said that I don't completely agree with here, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I just want to reiterate what Nikki was saying about taking the opportunity to do informational interviews. People love to talk about themselves, if you hadn't noticed. So, and all you need is to invite, you know, hey, can I take you out for a cup of coffee? I would love to talk about your path. Nikki has just volunteered because she's 98% vacant, apparently. You only get 2% of your requests.
This is all I do.
I know, I was kidding, Obviously, yeah. You want to be smart about it, right? Don't just like sort of, you know, spam out, you know, to 100 people, but be strategic. But if you want to talk to anybody, just call them. You're an insider at the University of Washington. People are happy to talk to you. I see nodding here. Just really quickly about who I, you know, reflect on in terms of my mentors. There are way too many to count. I think that's the bottom line. But as Ann has talked about, when your values start to gel, you start to realize in retrospect who really made a difference in your life. And for me, Connie Kravis, who's my vice president currently, she taught me humility. Connie is truly the embodiment of servant leadership. Does anybody know what that is? It's the idea that you take an org chart and you literally flip it on its head and she truly believes that. She truly believes that she is there not to be the top dog, but to be the person who takes obstacles out of everyone's way. And she looks up and asks herself every day, how can I make their lives, all 600 of us, how can I make their lives easier? How can I help them achieve their goals? And so for me, she's really been a touchstone for me. And this idea of humility, and Nikki touched on it, Jean touched on it, know what you don't know, be humble. And then the second value is be curious, and that is the answer to know what you don't know. Go find out, as Nikki said. Be curious, ask for more. Step up to the podium and say, I want to do more, let me do more. That's how you get recognized. That's how you build your reputation. So for curiosity, it was not even, you know, again, mentoring is not just about looking up, right? It's looking all over the place. I've gotten so many mentoring relationships from peers, from people who I don't report to at all. You can get learning from everywhere. So my touchstone there was Marilyn Montgomery. She's the Chief Advancement Officer in the School of Environment. And she's always learning, always wanting to know more, always curious. We talk about all kinds of things. And the final thing is, and Jean touched on this with love, it's the platinum rule. Everybody knows what the golden rule is, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Turns out we were all wrong. We were wrong. It's the platinum rule. It's do unto others as they would want them to do unto them, right? So it's not how you would react in a situation, it's how they would react in a situation. So the platinum rule for me has been really like this. That was my aha moment. You know, it's not about me, it's about how do I, again, Connie, all of my mentors teaching me that it's not about me, it's about how I open doors, how I help others get to where they want to go. So,
Great, thank you. And then the last question, before we open it up to the audience, and when I say audience, I mean you all and our friends out in La La Land. And the last question, I think, is a really good one to end in terms of this discussion. That is, what challenges did you encounter and how were they overcome? Because, you know, it's never smooth sailing. It just, as much as we would like for it to be, we all have challenges. And it would be interesting to hear about, from some of the panelists, what your challenges were. Linda?
politics.
Politics.
I'll take a stab at this one. Can you hear me? Okay. In my most recent roles, I have had faculty supervisors, and faculty supervisors change, and it's not something that's in your control. And it's a very interesting relationship for staff. I don't know how many of you are reporting to faculty supervisors. But in the case of, in physics, there was a chair change, and in the dean's office, I'm on my third dean. And those leadership changes can be, at the very best, it's a time of anxiety, not only because you don't know, or I did not know who I would be reporting to, but there is unease in your nodule of the organization about who is this new leader going to be. And it was, the first time I went through it in physics, it was very challenging because I had responsibility to model to the rest of the physics staff about how to go through this, and I ended up turning to my mentors to talk about, you know, what is this like? What's it going to be like? And so it was wonderful that I had a place to go and share my feelings with somebody that I trusted, and I had confidence would keep what needed to be kept within that circle of trust. And then being able to replicate that as we've moved through leadership changes in the college has also been, it's wonderful. It's a great challenge. It's not something I ever foresaw.
Yeah, great. Okay. All right, then I think
Can I
we're-
take one?
Absolutely.
I think
you
one
have
of
the
the other-
microphone.
Yeah, thank you. I know, it's right in front of me. It's so tempting. I think one of the challenges is just remembering to take time for to work on your own professional development. We all get busy in our jobs, and it's hard to remember that you have that right to think about where do you want to go and what do you want to develop. So for me, I work really hard at helping my staff develop and working with them on that. And every year when we go through my performance evaluation, one of the things on there is often, and how did you do in your own professional development? And I have to put needs improvement every year because I forget about that. So don't forget that piece.
Yes, absolutely.
And I just want to, Mindy will like this as a commercial. When you bump into problems that you feel like either there isn't anybody around you that can help you, or you need an independent point of assistance, I can't say enough about CareLink. It's a service that is provided at the university. How many of you have accessed CareLink services? They are fantastic and cover almost any area under the sun that you could have problems with. And I've accessed them for professional assistance in some really, really critical times, and for personal. And so it's another place where you can reach out, get help, get guidance, that you can not only bring back to the workplace, but bring home as well. And so it's just another service that the university provides that I think is not as utilized as it could be, because sometimes you forget about it. So I just want to do a little commercial for CareLink. It's really, really great.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah.
Nikki?
I want to piggyback off that real quickly. If you're in that place where and we've all been in a place where we're unhappy in our current job for whatever reason. For me, it was I became a lawyer and then realized I really hated being a lawyer. But whatever it is, if you're in a place where you're really unhappy, focus on why that is. Don't sit there and fester and make it about somebody else and, oh, my supervisor's terrible. Take that moment to figure out what it is that you dislike about it, and what it is that you would love to be doing, and take that time to build your skills and get to the next place you want to go. That's a really important time to focus on your professional development and not just sit in that really bad feeling place and fester about why you're unhappy. But figure out what it is about that position or those tasks that you don't like, and find a way to get to a position where you're doing work that you love and that you're good at.
Yeah, Nikki, I think, I know that when you take your folks out for coffee, I think that is the question that you ask them, isn't it? And that is, what is it you really want to be doing? And, you know, part of the issue is when you ask somebody, what is it that you really want to be doing? They may say to you, not this. Or they may say, I love this, but I want to be doing more of it, okay? But again, figure out what it is you really want to do and who you can go to kind of get advice. And Jean, did you?
Yeah, I had a tough time with this question because I think the way I'm wired is when I'm facing adversity or a challenging situation, I'm trying to learn and trying to get through it, right? And so and once I'm through it, I bury it someplace. I don't really carry it forward. So it's a little difficult. But I think back on some of the challenges that I've had at the university, either with labor relations issues or just some staffing issues or some tough situations. And I've always had a couple of people that I can go to and just reflect with and, you know, get advice and just to check in and keep things in perspective, because most things, like a year after they've occurred, you can barely remember it if you're looking forward. And the other thing that I was thinking as we were talking, think big. I think sometimes we don't really think big, and that's kind of a philosophy, but we should really, really think big, but act in simple ways. The individual development plan for 1 year. What is one or two things that you want to accomplish or that would help you get to this big thing that you're thinking about, if that's what you're doing? And then also in that plan, pinpoint the people that could help you accomplish that small, whether it's class, whether it's opportunities to do things, but to write that down and to have that bigger vision of where you want to be. It doesn't have to be, I like it to be concrete, but the things that you do in the interim to get there definitely need to be concrete.
Great advice, thank you. Are we ready to turn it over to our audience for questions? Do we have any questions, Linda or Jamie or? Yes. Okay, one second, because we want everybody to hear it. So Linda's right behind you. It's okay.
I was just wondering, if your current department that you're in, you work with great people, but you don't really have a mentor type of person, or even perhaps the person in that role is, well, they have the knowledge and they know what they're doing and they're doing a great job. They're not a teaching type, and what are my options outside of my own department where I could go to approach somebody about mentoring in the area I was looking to get into without feeling like I was, you know, they have their own job to do as well. So where can I go to get some sort of help with that sort of thing, where I could feel comfortable having some sort of, even just a couple hours a week or something like that, or shadowing, I don't know. But there's just, I don't feel like in my department there is a role that there is somebody that I could really make that happen.
Great question. Panel?
Call Nikki.
We'll post her number later. Well, I think building on something Christina said, I think the first thing is to identify that the individual who has the roles or the responsibilities or the duties that you would like to have at some point in the future, and reach out and just invite them out for that cup of coffee and that informational interview. And you know, then it's about building a relationship. That individual may or may not have, quote, time, but they might know somebody else who they can talk to. I've had From time to time, people have called and said, hey, I have this friend, this is what they do, can you help me network, right? Maybe I'm just the kickoff point, and it's like, that's outside of my skill set, but now I'm going to pick up the phone and call Christina and say, Christina, I've had this contact, here's this person, would you have time for an informational interview? I think one of the wonderful things about this organization is that there are lots and lots of people who would love to try and help, right? And it may not be them, but they are more than happy to point you in the right direction. So the first step is simply asking. And every time that I've reached out and asked for help, the person's always been really nice and said, yes, I'm not the right person, but I know who is, and so here's the next step.
Thank you, Linda.
Can I jump onto that?
Of course you can.
And make sure you know what you're asking for. So, so know what the skill is that, I have this skill, I want to have this skill, and I think that person has it. And, I wouldn't go in saying, I want 2 hours a week of your time. Nobody's going to say yes to that. Even I wouldn't say yes to that. And I'm a sucker for stuff like this. So I would, start with, I want to just talk to you about your job. Here's what I'm trying to learn, and here's why I think you're the right person. Can I talk to you about how I can gain this skill? Sit down and have coffee with them, talk with them about that, and just kind of kick around some ideas. They're going to have their own ideas about how to help you get that. So that's your starting point. And exactly what Linda said. They're going to connect you with other people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have done things like that with people on this panel and many, many other people. But know exactly what it is you're asking for and start small. And I agree that the place to start is having a cup of coffee about their job.
And don't be thoughtful when you ask a question and the answer isn't what you thought it should or would be. I have been challenged by mentors so many times by hearing something like, oh, well, that wasn't what I expected. And it's an opportunity to learn, maybe challenge some of your own notions about what you thought about a certain topic or your own path or whatever it might be.
Can I just say, there's a lot of right ways. There's no right way to do this, to get this relationship started, but there's absolutely a wrong way, and that is to not prepare. We've had situations where people come in and they literally, figuratively, put up their feet and say, okay, fill me up, I'm your vessel. And that's not the point of an informational interview, right? Or at the beginning of you have to be prepared, as Nikki said. Be strategic.
Great, thank you. Others?
Coming.
I'm really loud. Hi. You can probably tell that I am not from here. And so my biggest issue in moving up is that I don't know anyone. I don't have any connections. I didn't go to college with anyone. I didn't live next door to someone. So I wonder, for someone like me, apart from kind of building my professional relationship, what would be your tips to making that transition to the next position?
So how long have you been at the university?
I think it's coming up to 9 months.
Okay.
Okay, so you do know people. Well, I see 215 other people.
This would be a good accent, obviously.
Yeah, so people, seriously,
Apparently it makes
You
me
could
sound
read the
smarter.
phone book.
seriously, this is the way it works. So, when I moved here, I guess people say I still have a Southern accent, but when I first moved here, I had a real Southern accent, and people always asked me about it. People would always come up and talk to me and ask me about my accent. That's one way to start talking to people. And I know that's kind of silly, but people always would come up and talk to me about it. You've got an accent. People will talk to you, and they will
Ann
start.
loves an accent.
Right. People will start talking to you. So this is the way it starts. You start talking to people, you get their card, you give them your card. You talk about what you do, you find out people who do the same sort of stuff. If you know that, oh, this person over here has a job that you've heard about that sounds sort of interesting, get their card. Go have coffee with them. Sit down at a break and talk to them. Part of it is it's a huge place, and you just have to take some time to learn the organization. But it will happen. But part of it happens just like this. I have to say, you must be doing pretty well if in 9 months you're already being recognized enough to be sent to this. So, good on you.
Yeah, I put myself forward for this.
Well, good for you. That's part of what it, some of it takes things like that. But this is how it happens, is just talking to people in events like this and putting yourself forward for additional projects and things like Ann talked about.
Right, and so it's, the university is a big place, and when I came here, I didn't know anybody either. No, I really didn't. I didn't go to school here. I didn't know a soul, not a soul. But we have wonderful, wonderful resources, and one of the resources that we have is the Whole U. How many of you all have heard about the Whole U? Right? So there you can find your interest and connect with people. You can go to seminars. It's all about, if fitness isn't your thing, and nutrition or finance, but wine is, okay? Or cooking is, right? It's figuring out, what's your interest, and then seeking out what your interest is. They've got things going on just about every single day. And it really is connecting with somebody else, because when I'm looking for somebody in my department, if I've got a vacancy, I will go out and say, does anybody know anybody with these skill sets? And while we may not have the right person within HR that's looking for a different job, someone else may say, yeah, you know what, I have a friend who has a friend, and she just said, and it's usually in the bathroom that I hear about these things. And so take advantage. So you actually may not know anybody, but become part of something bigger. Yes, we have a question over here.
So I wonder if you can tell us about a successful mentoring relationship you've had with someone downstream, or someone that you've mentored in the past 5 years that's been successful.
That is a terrific, terrific question.
And I'm so glad you asked it,
Because Jean prepared a thesis on this?
actually, when I agreed to serve on this panel, I asked 2 people that I've mentored for 10 years or more. One started out as a fiscal specialist in my department, and she's now a director in the School of Medicine Finance.
Wow.
And the other was a HR rep, and he's now an associate or assistant dean. So not that the mentoring relationship got them there, but I'm very humble. But I asked them to share with me anything that I did or through the course of time. So would it be okay?
I would love to hear, and I think everybody would. Thank you, Jean.
So I started my first permanent full-time job at UW after graduation, and I had the good luck to work under your leadership. You promoted a workplace environment that encouraged two-way communications between staff and managers. Expectations were reasonable and communicated well. New ideas were welcome and not ridiculed. And above all, we laughed so hard while getting our day-to-day work done. Over the years, you are someone I've reached out to when I needed another perspective on an issue, or needed a boost of positive attitude when I've been in a tough job-related situation or an issue outside of work. You are one of the most positive people I know, and your personal stories have always inspired me in my life, both at work and life outside of work. You have this unique ability of showing people their strengths, which at times they fail to see on their own. There are countless times when, on my way to Aquavarti, that's where we have lunch, I have my head full of questions and uncertainties, and by the time we are ready to say bye to each other, I have this newfound positive energy and an attitude to deal with anything life throws my way. So I'm really humbled. I'm going to frame this. This is like the best compliment that I've ever received in my 32 years here. And it's just connecting with people. Just, you know, sometimes it might be a family situation, sometimes it's about work, very specific things, but just over time, and there might be times where we go 6, 7 months without talking to each other, and all of a sudden I'll see a lunch scheduled. And then I might do some prep work and find out, okay, what's going on, so I can be prepared to help. But it's the most rewarding experience that I've had, and that's mentoring this young lady as well as the other man. I won't read the other email. I might break out into tears.
Yeah, it'll make all of us feel terrible, you know, because we'll start to question our mentor expertise. No, I think that it really does go to who you are, Gene. And for those who know Gene, it really does go to who he is. And Gene, every single person here has mentored me. And that's why I wanted them on this panel, because they truly have, for different reasons and skill sets, have been a mentor to me. And I think that's the important thing, is you have to look all around you. And it's not who can help me get to that next job. It's what is it that this person has that I so think is just like a shining star, and I admire them for. I mean, that's really what it's about. And when Gene talks about love and admiration, you know, this university is full of love and admiration. We are a service organization. We are here to serve, and in every fiber of our being, it radiates, I think. And that's why we're so willing to reach out and to help. Any other questions? Yes. We have do we have one before?
We'll do 2 more, but we need to make them snappy.
Okay.
So over there with you, Linda, and then we'll do one over here.
And then we have one.
We have one online.
Oh, we do have one online. Okay.
Should we do the one online first?
This question is, what is the place for formal mentoring? What experiences do you have or have seen with formal mentoring arrangements from the Tacoma campus?
I can take that one. So in the finance area, we have had formal, and I think place meaning, is it effective? I think is, right? As opposed to, okay. What I like about a formal mentoring program is that it is a deliberate message that the organization is sending, that that's something that they value. And that in and of itself, I think, is a very healthy way for an organization to value their employees. And it also gives folks that are interested in being a mentor an opportunity to step outside of themselves in maybe ways that they have not. And people that are a little more reticent about just saying, will you be my mentor? It's permission. And then if it has the added feature of matching people that have similar interests or seem to be good, be able to have a good vibe, that's even better. And it can also be again, if structured this way, have, just like we've done today, training or coaching for the coaches, if you will, so that, and for the mentees, so that they know how to converse with one another if it's the first time for both of them. So I think it can play a really important role for people that are new to thinking about themselves as a coach, or people that have for the first time seeking out getting advice from people. So I think it has an important place to play. And it shouldn't be the only opportunity that people have. And I think you've heard today that it's sometimes those informal, maybe it's the bathroom conversation or the hallway conversation, that is always an opportunity to learn something. But what formal programs can sometimes do is sort of take down that mystique. And it's one of those things where the more you practice something, the better you get at it. And so you'll probably be better at as a coachee or a mentee and as a mentor if you've had an opportunity to practice and to make mistakes. And a program that says, it's okay to make mistakes, and here's what you do about it. So I think they have a really important place if it's something that's new to your particular workplace.
Yeah, I would also add that if you want a formal mentoring relationship, there need to be clear boundaries and expectations set. So what is the job of the mentor? What is the job of the mentee? How much time is this going to take? Do I work for them? What are my expectations out of this relationship? Because if there are not clear boundaries, it will not work, okay? And then I also think that you want to think about, is this working? Because there are times where you will go and you will have a mentor-mentee relationship and it's just not working. And you need to be able to step away from it. So formal relationships are wonderful and they have a place, but there needs to be structure around them, and both parties need to understand what the structure is.
And in our mentoring program, your mentor could not be your boss or your boss's boss. It needed to be somebody outside of the chain of command in order for it to be effective. And again, that's another value that the organization set, that it's okay to get and seek advice from people that aren't in your management chain.
Okay. I'm told we have time for one last question from the audience.
We're going to have to flip a coin. We've got one here, and I think Linda had one. I guess we'll just jump in here.
Thank you. Can you please tell me a time where being curious caused some work strain or tension between your coworker, and how you overcame that and made it a successful relationship in the end? I've been at the U 6 months and 2 weeks now, and I am curious. And I'm telling you that it's not easy to talk to someone who's been here 20, 15 years. You know, the average years is about the average age of me. And so, and so when I'm curious, it's like, I almost feel it's almost like a threat to them. And I just want to know about your experiences with this, with your, and how you overcame that.
I'll take a stab at it. I think
We all started when we were 10, just to make that really, really clear.
your answer, your question actually goes to somebody over here who is kind of, you were talking about how to break into a mentoring relationship. Again, you want to be strategic. So if you're getting that kind of reaction from those folks, then you need to turn to other folks who actually do reward and believe in the value of curiosity. I'm sorry that's been your experience, but there are a lot of people around the university who have exactly the opposite attitude, and you just got to go find them. So call me.
And if I could build on that, I think the other place that you could potentially go is, we, again, as Mindy mentioned, we're coming up on performance evaluations, or presumably there's some cadence within your unit about regular meetings with your supervisor and sharing with your supervisor your curiosity and seeking their advice about where to go to slake your thirst.
Can I add one thing? If it's someone in your department and they're feeling territorial, never happens in our department, Mindy, but I've heard it sometimes happens in others. I'm just really upfront with people. I'll just say, I hope I'm not stepping on toes at all. I'm just really curious about this, and I know feed their ego. People, Christina
So
said,
that's what you're doing to me.
No, not to you. I've heard other people do this. But feed their ego, I've only been here a little while. I know that you're the person who really has the expertise in this area because you've been here since the dawn of time. And don't say that part. But I'm just really curious about this, and I would love for you to teach me about X because I really find this fascinating. That's, I would ask that way and tell them that you're asking and why you're asking as opposed to just asking.
Right. So, unfortunately, that concludes our time on this subject, and I just want to thank this amazing panel.